I got the question, will I do a dramatic reading of a Jack Gotti lyric?
Oh, okay.
And okay. I'm going to set a high goal here. Apparently on the chat on YouTube, you can now do a goal thing. So I set a high goal, so maybe I don't have to. So, start goal. No, there it is. So if I get 20 or more super chats for $5 or more within the next 2 hours, I will do a dramatic reading of a Jack Gotti song.
Okay, Jack Gotti? Who's Jack Gotti?
He's one of the defendants in the YSL trial. I managed to find a tune that had almost no N-words in it.
I like the qualifier, almost.
Yeah. Let's see here, which is, I think, the one with the least amount, or let's see here, is the Count Up with Gunna featuring Jack Gotti. So, but there's a lot of other words. There's a lot of other words which will get this stream demonetized. So, yet again, challenge accepted. All right.
Yeah, this is yeah. See the I've got ghosts. Look at that. So man, how's it going? You just sent me it. I just randomly saw it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go say hello to Nick, my buddy.
Yeah, I'm just doing a lazy Saturday stream because I mean, I invited folks I haven't invited for quite some time as well, because the YSL trial has been more or less my entire life for a year and a half, and most
isn't it absurd?
Yeah.
I mean, is this an injustice? It's absurd that there's actually a trial going on. For how long?
Well, the trial technically started when the jury was sworn in November 27th of last year. But they started the jury selection in January of 2023.
How can there be any semblance of justice out of whatever's coming out of this? I mean, I don't know. Give me some perspective. In Europe, what is the longest you've seen trials go?
Oh, wow. Well, we have a few terrorism trials that went on for quite some time, but the longest trial in Sweden is the Lundin Oil crime against humanity trial. That has been going on now for 12 years.
I don't think that, I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand that kind of, there needs to be some editing, you know, some get to the point editing. I don't understand how that's, if it's that complex, it baffles me. I'm just confused.
The longest criminal trial must be the serial killer trial against Thomas Quick, but that was portioned out one for each alleged murder, which was 6 of them, and none of them were more than a week and a half long, but it was over the span of 3 years. So
well, this trial, I don't see, I mean, it's an abuse of the jury, it's an abuse of the defense attorneys. There's no reason why this trial needs to be like this. They could edit it down. They could try one person on a number of select counts, on just the most serious counts.
Yeah.
Nail them on the serious counts and put them away for however many decades that it takes, and move on. You know, it's like, why you have to like have this cosmic justice system.
For instance, Shannon Stillwell is on the line for the murder of Donovan Thomas back in 2015. He's been charged but not indicted for 9 years because the evidence is so incredibly weak. So not until Fani Willis started to try to be the queen of RICO, and they mixed it in with everything else. It's a trial of quantity, not quality.
Which is wrong. I mean, it's just bad prosecution, which we're seeing over and over again. Oh, by the way, I'll sweeten the pot for Nick, my buddy Nick, who's a great guy. And I was with EU today, and I'm with Nick today, my bestest buddies on the internet. And I want to say that if you make the dramatic reading, I'll have a sidecar while you read it. I'm going to sweeten the pot. Is that fair?
That is fair. That is fair.
Okay.
Am I going to be the designated driver on this stream?
Yep.
Well, with 2 years sober, I guess I can handle that.
Yeah, you can handle that. And you've been a corrections officer, so
yeah, keep everybody in line.
Erin Olivia just got here. Why am I sending money? Well,
is that Gigi up here, by the way?
Yeah, that's Gigi.
I think I was interacting with her a little bit on Twitter today. Was that you on Twitter, Gigi?
I don't know if it was today. I interact with you a lot, though. I'm the one that emails you all the time. You used to critique all your trials, your appellate trial.
Yeah, that's funny. I love it. Well, there's a lot of good people out there, and that's the thing. You get to meet some good folks, and if you come in with a good attitude and expect the best out of people, you're going to find really good people like Gigi here. And there's a number of people we disagree sometimes, but we do it politely and with respect. And it's fun because that's the best of what we can do on the internet. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, Steve is such an awesome person. He and Nick both just blow me away. I wonder sometimes, what am I not doing that I should be doing? But, both of them take out of their own time to talk to a goofy old woman that is considering things in her life. And I just think that's amazing. And I appreciate you both.
Oh, well, I usually respond when somebody says something intelligent and worthwhile to respond to. And you are one of those people that does operate, I'd say, at a level of intelligence and worthy of responding to. So thanks for being somebody who's got a brain and actually puts it out there for us.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah. For Erin Olivia, thank you. If I get 20 super chats within 2 hours for $5 or more, I'm doing a dramatic reading of a Jack Gotti song. So that is why you're sending in money now.
And
Steve will have a sidecar.
Just hope Brandon's not lurking out there. He'll do it all at once.
$4.99 is considered $5. I can see that on the counter. Dolly, have you considered doing a replay of the trial? That won't happen. That won't happen. Because first of all, once this is done, there are 12 more defendants waiting.
Absurd.
Severed from this trial for different reasons.
What a disaster. Hey, EU's in the chat too. Did you catch any of our stream? We did like a 2.5 hour stream.
I caught the beginning of it, and I've been having it in the background, but I can't say this is one of the things that I will catch on replay. Freedom, can't set this for $5. Is $4.99 good enough? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you so much. HM, $20. Well, it's $5 or more, so I'm very happy. Glad to see you back.
Does that count as 4 or does that count as 1?
No, that's on you, by the way. He is doing it on your channel, so it doesn't count on mine.
Oh, this is on my channel. Oh, well, thank you, Emma. I'm glad to see you back on YouTube. Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just, I'm having a free night tonight. I actually was sick. I had like a little 24-hour thing. Maybe it was just exhaustion. I'm so exhausted at my new job. I'm just working so hard. I don't have much energy or time to stream. And I came home yesterday and I was just wiped out. So I slept. And now I went today. I had the Miami Book Fair, went to the Miami Book Fair. I streamed with you today, and now I'm on with you. And so I had a little energy because I had some sleep yesterday instead of working all the time. I wore myself out, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to have a day job and do this streaming. Looking back at a year and a half of the YSL trial, where I basically been streaming every day. Now, I did switch to recapping a few months ago, mostly because, I mean, I get up at 4:30 in the morning, check the farm, go to work at 6 a.m., going home to 2:30 p.m. Then at 3 p.m. my time, the trial starts. And I did that for a better part of a year, day in and day out.
Your farm looks beautiful, though. I want to move to Sweden.
Oh, my farm is amazing. It's amazing. And it's my retirement fund, so to speak. Because
Hey, Toyo Toys asks a very dangerous question. You see there?
oh, hold on. Yes, what's a sidecar?
The question is, how big a fan are you, Nick? Because do you know what a sidecar is? Do you know what the ingredients are?
It's something with orange and lemon.
Yes, that's right. Well, so it's easy because it's the French sidecar. There's an English sidecar and there's a French sidecar. The French sidecar is a lot sweeter, and I like sweet drinks, right? So it's 1/3 orange liqueur, which is Cointreau. It's 1/3 sweet and sour. I use Rose's sweet and sour, and 1/3 brandy, which I use a Fundador, which is a Spanish brandy. So it's a third, orange liqueur, brandy, and sweet and sour with a sugar rim to really give it the extra sweetness.
Now, I don't have, I mean, I'm not much of a drinks person. We have something, we call it a grog. It's a 2-part drink. It's booze and chaser. That's more. But then again, gin and tonic, that's a 2-parter if you don't have the olive and stuff. So, but I'm more a whiskey guy. I mean,
yeah, actually, Ginger with the Soul says bitters too, because and that is an ingredient. You can add bitters to the sidecar if you want, and it doesn't have to be. I've had different sidecars before. I had the best, or I learned to like sidecars at the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which has a really good sidecar. But I like it sweet. That's the key. But you don't like mixed drinks as much, there, Nick. What is your favorite drink?
Drink. Well, my go-to drink when I have a drink, it's almost always a gin and tonic. It is, and most of the time I use the what do you call it? The Navy Strength gin, which is the higher proof gin, and then I more or less show the tonic for the gin. Because when you get up to there, you don't need much to add on to the gin and tonic.
I don't know.
I don't gin. Then isn't that paint thinner?
Yeah, it's got dual use. Hey, Gigi, what's your favorite drink?
Well, I was always a straight whiskey girl. I do daiquiris to look cool with the other girls when I would go out way back when. But I always had my fifth in the car because I was a straight whiskey girl. And I was a bartender for a year and a half, and I'd never heard of a sidecar, Steve. So thank you for teaching me something.
It's a little unusual. I don't know where like I said, I had one at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and they had I think it's a little more old fashioned. The French sidecar says a third. It's real easy because you can pre-mix it and then put it in the fridge. That's what I do. And then like when Brandon comes on and bribes me or whatever, or we come on Nick, we celebrate, it's easy just to pour into a chilled vodka glass, and then I just rim it with sugar. But then so I like that, but the English sidecar, I think, is like 7 parts brandy with 1 part orange liqueur, 1 part sweet and sour. So it's a much stronger drink, the British kind of in the Churchillian tradition.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, since we are talking about whiskey, I'm having myself a nice one. This I bought in United States. Now this is straight bourbon whiskey, finished in port wine cask, limited edition. When I was in the United States, me and Dave went to this up-and-coming manufacturer. This has only been out in stores since October, and it's only sold in Michigan, maybe Kentucky, well, maybe just 3 or 4 states, and it's really, really good. So I'm actually having myself
talk himself into it. It's fun, I don't know. I had this Angel's Envy whiskey, I think it was. Did you heard of Angel's Envy? I don't know, man. I'm not a whiskey guy. I know all these lawyers love whiskey. Boy, that is hard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like whiskey, you have to go for a blended, very smooth one, and the Japanese are really good at it. You have one that is called Nikka from the barrel, which is incredibly smooth.
Rare in the history says, I'm a Wisconsin girl and through.
Ow!
Old fashions, heavy on the bitters and go-to cocktail. What is your opinion of the old fashioned? Have you ever had an old fashioned?
I've had it, but why ruin a good whiskey?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't handle whiskey. I tried it. Where did I have that shot? I think it was Brandon that paid me to have a shot or whatever, but it was like, it is so harsh, man. I don't know. But somebody was saying that Angel's Envy needs to be mixed with something.
I have no idea what Angel's Envy is.
I'll show it to you. I'll get to it. Hold on a second.
The D's Life Unity. Come on, everybody want to hear this. Yeah, we have 4 out of 20. $5 or more super chat. Yeah, this turned into a grifting stream of sorts. 4 out of 20 super chats, $5 or more for me doing a dramatic reading of a Jack Gotti song. And then Erin Olivia went over to
and that's
Steve's channel.
Thank you. You guys are welcoming me back with. Yeah, this is Angel's Envy. It's let me see. Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey finished in port wine barrels. It is 43.3% alcohol by volume, 86.6 proof. So how much is that whiskey what's the proof of that whiskey that you just got? What's the percent? Nick, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. This is 55.5. This is probably on the stronger end that I have.
Well, this one's, what is it? What's the percentage?
55.5.
That's proof, or is that alcohol by volume?
111 proof.
Okay, so that's even stronger. This is 86.6 proof.
But I do. Once I look at it and smell it, my mouth is watering. So it is being diluted.
Okay. Well, what do you dilute it with? Tonic, you said?
No, only gin. I dilute with tonic. No, this is a well-known joke over here.
Let me
I like this booze so much. I only drink it with my eyes closed, because if I open my eyes, my mouth watering, and I don't want to dilute it.
Let me see you drink a swig of that, because that is tough stuff. How can you do that? I don't understand these. I don't know how these lawyers do it. I'm impressed. I about killed me. I had this stuff and I was like.
But here's the thing: when I drink it, I don't take a swig out of it. It's just touching the lips, more or less.
I don't know. You're killing me with that, but I'm impressed. Maybe it's the cold weather up there.
Well, yeah, maybe. Oh, but I grew up in the part of Sweden which is moonshine country. So I mean, 80% alcohol is the standard, and then you dilute it to 40 and allegedly sell it. Sweden has an alcohol monopoly, and so it's only sold in certain stores. And where I grew up, the local politician says we can't get one of these stores here because then all the housewives will be alcoholics. Well, okay, so let's have them keep drinking moonshine then. And
where do we have? We had some moonshine up in Tennessee, and when we went up, it was a great vacation in Tennessee, and there was a moonshine factory or some sort. It was really good, actually. I must say, I wasn't unhappy with it. Something about this whiskey. How you guys? I don't know. There's a lot of lawyers love the whiskey, though. You know that?
Yeah, but American whiskey is not like Scotch whiskey, and so it's much smoother. But I don't know about that Angel's Envy thing.
Well, this was recommended to me by a bunch of drunken lawyers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. I got it because they said, "What's a really good whiskey?" You know, and so I'm like, it's expensive stuff. It's like $90 for this bottle. But let me tell you, it's not getting drank. I mean, unless I don't know.
Next time I'm going to the States, I have to take a tour down to Florida and visit.
Yeah, you should come visit Miami. You know, it's as bad as my little experience was that I went through down here. There's a lot of great things about Miami. You know, the food here, the restaurant scene is just great. There's so many great food, and it's a beautiful city. I mean, there's some infrastructure issues and some garbage issues like that, but there's also some beautiful skyline. There's the water and, you know, South Beach. There's some beautiful neighborhoods, and I really love the culture. You know, the Cuban culture, the Latino culture here, Spanish culture is wonderful, and you know, there's just a lot of things to do. And I mean, I will say that there are some great things about Miami. I mean, I know that I don't judge it by the things that happened to me. You know, I've had a bad experience, I should say, but that was mostly the criminal law community that didn't exactly welcome me.
You had competence. I mean,
you're right. Well, they really need some fresh air down here in that little niche. But,
it seems like the Miami-Dade, there's an unhealthy. I mean, lawyers and prosecutors can hang out. Never have been an issue. But it's when they start to cooperate, that's a big danger. I mean, and not talking about videos and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also sort of a, maybe there's an incestuous nature to, like, you know, there's a small community and they all get along. They think this is the way things should be done. And when someone comes in and says, you know what, I think you've got something wrong here. You know, it's like it rejects that virus from the system because we don't want to move away from the way we've done things. And, you know, there's some real, I actually have some thoughts on this that maybe we'll talk about in about 30 days.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, the more I looked into it, because everybody is a part of an organization in Miami-Dade, and they are all part of that organization, and then the same people are a part of that organization, and it's attorneys and prosecutors of, let's say, a gender. I just took that out of the blue, has nothing, but if you hang out too much, that you develop not only friendship but a codependency. You need that pat on the back all the time.
Well, it becomes a tribalistic
Yeah.
thing, and so the somebody that comes in who's not part of the tribe is immediately rejected, right?
Yeah.
And this is a tribal, and it's a large enough community that that the tribe can be sort of self-sufficient. If you have a very small group, it's hard to do that. It's like you got 5 or 10 people, but when you have a large enough city, a large enough group, it can form an incestuous mob that is self-referential and doesn't respond well to external criticisms or external ideas even. And I think that's kind of what we have here. But we got a Patty B.
Yeah. Can we ask Steve about the Delphi trial verdict?
Well, I haven't been following any of these things. I mean, I hate to say it, but I've been working so hard at my civil practice that I'm not really up to speed on a lot of these things. If you have like general questions, I don't even know, what is the Delphi murder trial?
The Delphi murder trial, 2017, 2 girls were disappeared and then found the next morning.
Okay. Yeah. This is the one with the torture confession, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm against torture confessions.
Yeah.
People do not realize how that people can't. Confessions are really something. 20%. I think the Innocence Project says that 20% of false
29%.
29% of are of wrongful convictions that actually innocent people are based on false confessions.
Yeah.
Juries and people generally are like, I'd never confess to something I didn't do. Yeah, and so and they don't understand that false confessions occur.
Yeah, and I've said this on a few occasions that now I have military training, and I have the old school military training where we got trained in interrogations techniques in order to withstand interrogations technique. And without a doubt, if I used that against anyone, it would take me days, and I would make people say, this pen is blue. It's not nice, people. It really isn't. And that, I know we had a brief discussion about the so-called read technique, which is dangerous in the wrong hands.
Okay, let's talk about the read technique, because I've heard this bandied about in the internet, and I had an expert on the read technique on my channel a while back, because the thing about the read technique, it's a very good, useful mechanism for extracting confessions from people. All right. There's protections that need to be trained as part of the read technique. Now, from my understanding, the read technique as it is trained contains within its guideposts these protections. For example, a holdback list is, right? Are you familiar with a holdback list? A holdback list would be a list of facts that you know that only the killer would know, for example, but you don't introduce them into the interrogation. You don't suggest. There's certain things that you just do to protect from false confessions. So the read technique in and of itself is not problematic, like what you said, if done properly. The problem is that people get a hold of this mechanism by which you can extract leads, and they don't use this protection mechanisms and extract false confessions using this technique. So it's kind of like a firearm. A firearm can be used for good or evil, right? They have got the science of the interrogation so well oiled that they can get people to say stuff that they wouldn't normally say. So you have to protect against the false confession when you are an administrator of the read technique. So I don't think the technique is necessarily bad. Throw it out with the bathwater. What I'm saying is that there needs to be protections around it that are trained and utilized by the interrogators.
Yeah, and in this case, in the Delphi trial, when it is top to bottom and there's no control. There's no what you call it, the quality control of it. Then everybody's using it in order to get confessions, not in order to actually get the truth. But speaking of truth, we have a truth sayer in the background. It is my fellow elf. Hi, Ian.
Oh, it's
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Rumple's,
doing good.
he's my elf fantasy character in my D&D game.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Well, I am here to partially disagree with you because I heard you before I came on to say you were saying that the read technique is not inherently a problem, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna disagree with that.
Okay, let's hear it, man. Go for it.
Everything in the read technique is designed to create false confessions. It might work to generate real confessions, but it does so largely by accident. And the things you're talking about in terms of the holdback, those never work. People leak that information without even realizing it, and a lot of that information will have been leaked to the suspect long before they walk into that room.
Well, one thing,
And there's just no way to prevent it, and there's no way to know that that's happened. And when they've got somebody who's willing to confess who doesn't know that stuff, they go over and over and over the details until they finally get what they want. And when you see those false confessions done where they're using the read technique, but they've got holdbacks, what they end up doing is they're like, nope, you didn't get the story right. Keep telling it. And eventually the guy figures out by trial and error what those holdback details are, and they get their confession. And then they're like, oh, well, we never said it was an axe. We just played 20 questions for 3 days until the guy figured out axe after guessing knife, gun, sword, chainsaw, whatever else. And none of these protections end up holding up. What the read technique is, it's a method to put incredible pressure on somebody to confess truthfully or falsely. And, it's not a reliable means of anything, and the protections just don't actually function.
Well, okay, maybe, and I'm not. I will say that I'm basing a lot of my opinion on my interview with Dr. Oh man, well, he's an expert on false confessions, and he actually criticizes and teaches and talks about the read technique. I don't know if he teaches, but he was the one that corrected me on my criticisms of the read technique. And he's an expert on false confessions and not a police guy at all. He was a very Dr. Declue. Oops, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. See, it's one of those magical elf tricks. And he was saying another thing is that they should always be videotaped. There should always be a holdback list, and there's a number of things.
oh,
And so,
there.
oh, okay. But I'm no expert on it. I just know the guy that is the expert who has talked me into saying that the read technique isn't inherently bad. But I'm interested to hear more about how much specifics that you've gotten into it.
There's numerous cases where they've had holdback lists, and the problem is that those holdback lists are often badly flawed. Like they'll say nobody knew this, and it will have already been reported by the news, or it's just kind of obvious, right? There's one case where the holdback list was that it was done with a gun, was one of the items on it, but it had already been described in the news as a drive-by. And the thing is nobody does a drive-by
knife shooting.
Yeah, or
drive-by stoning.
It's
so dark.
I'm not super
but isn't that
we get that kind of issue?
But isn't that an implementation problem rather than because like you said, you've got to have a holdback list that is actually something that actually the killer would know, not something that's blatantly obvious, like you're saying.
The problem is that these holdback items it's impossible to tell if it's been contaminated or not, because all it takes is one guy to just let this slip and it's ruined, right? And people hear things when they're being booked. People hear things when and it just it's not actually a reliable protection because of all of that.
And in the Delphi case, you have the psychologist who treated Richard Allen, who also was a true crime fan and member of several Facebook groups regarding the Delphi case, and the Discord and the Reddit of the. So this this van thing that he said he was startled with had been talked about for years
Okay, but
in those
I just,
forums.
on that though, I asked Andrew about this the other day, and I said, did I miss something? Did the defense bring up at any point in time clearly to the jury that his confessions could have been influenced by Dr. Waller and her exposure to these people online? And she said no. So in order for the jury to put those pieces together and go, okay, the van and other things that only the killer could know, how could he have found out that information from somewhere else? I
The thing
believe
is
it was up to
juries
the defense
ultimately-
to close the loop.
Ultimately, juries don't care. There is basically nothing that a defense lawyer can do about a false confession because juries.
Let's. I don't agree with that. See, no, it's Runkle and Gosney of disagreeing time. I had a false confession case, and that's how I know Dr. DeClue. He was our expert who came in and spoke and talked about a false confession, which is the centerpiece, by the way, of the death penalty desired novel. Is that trial centers around a false confession, and you'll hear the false confession as it went out, and it's kind of derived from the case that I did, and you can challenge it under a false. You can move to suppress based on overly suggestive thing. Now the problem is if you don't have a judge willing to enforce improper technique, then it comes in over objection. Well, that's subject for cross-examination. The jury then hears it, and juries place an inordinate amount of credibility behind a confession, and they don't care about whether it's improperly techniqued or not.
And
so
that's what I was meaning, is that once it goes to the jury just doesn't care. Anything you tell them about, bad technique, there is no, when the judge says, oh, you can fix it on cross, you can, elicit all of this. They're not listening. They just hear the confession and that's it.
No, you're right about that. And judges need to be much more aggressive about suppressing, but it's just not. It's just, they just don't. So I recognize that limitation. And we had, like I said, we had a false confession. We moved to suppress. The judge blew us off, said, use that on cross. We had our expert who talked about, he actually used our false confession in a national seminar in San Diego to show everything that was wrong with how not to do an interrogation. They did everything wrong. For example, one of the things our client was saying was, I don't remember what you're saying, because they were suggesting, you remember this, don't you remember? She's like, I don't remember. And they said to her, that is not an acceptable answer.
That's textbook read technique.
Yes. And it's like, and she's like, it's not, but I don't remember. But no, that's not acceptable. And then they'd suggested things, and it was very, very coercive. And he testified everything was done wrong in that case. And
but that's how the read technique works. Like that is part of the instruction manual for engaging in the read technique.
Well,
that's not misusing it. That's using it exactly as directed.
Well, that shouldn't be done, because somebody that says they can't remember, you can't force it. And we also had a very submissive female. There comes the book. My book was basically a submissive female, and it always puzzled me how a submissive person, an agreeable person, could end up in prison, because most defendants are very disagreeable. And one of the ways was they coerced a false confession out of her. And that was one of the reasons I made my character a submissive character, because they are much more likely to be susceptible to suggestion and to agree with the interrogator, especially when they trusted the person. There's false confessions are very dangerous, and people don't know until you've been put in that situation. It's like most people, I would never do that. Well, you don't know that. I put in
People
the
really
private
think they
chat, by
couldn't.
the way.
They
Though.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
People really think that there's just no way they would ever do that, but you never walked a mile in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, but one of the basic why this read technique is even a thing in the United States is cops are allowed to lie.
I have a problem with more than, and I'll tell you, I have a philosophical problem with that. Now, it may extract false confessions. There may be techniques and stuff that may be allowed. Maybe there should be a lying warrant that's allowed. The problem, though, is it internalizes deception from the part of the government. So then, if it's okay to lie to a suspect, is it okay to lie on the witness stand? Is it okay to lie in your police report? Is it okay to lie here and here? It becomes that's the way we do things. And that acceptance of deception in the institutional, that internalization that this is okay, is corrupting to the law enforcement agencies.
I can't disagree, but the United States have.
What do you think, Rocco? Are you going to disagree with that? Come on. Let's see. Let's just.
No, I mean, test lying is a huge problem. It's, I mean, the thing is that officers are probably not going to stop lying in court anytime soon.
But it becomes acceptable practice institutionally. That is a larger problem than just the it expands outside. You can't just limit it to this little interrogation room. Now all of a sudden the defense attorney, and now it's the court. Now it's okay because they're bad guys. I mean, it becomes a moral problem at that point.
Well, cops lying on the stand is not it's not unusual in the rest of the Western world, and so I don't think that is so much a parallel to them allowed to lie in. We don't have the read technique over here, at least, but cops lying on the stand and cops lying in interrogations, I don't think it has the parallel might not be there, because that happens all the time in the rest of the Western world. It's a big problem that cops lie on the stand, full stop. And
I think they directly a lot of officers teach each other to lie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do have a great experience from a great legal scholar of mine, a friend of mine, Leroy. The popo always be lying.
What's really interesting is when you see one cop interrogating another cop that already knows what the game is. And then you hear them confessing stuff that some fits the facts and some doesn't. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But when it comes to false confessions, that is a whole other subject than cops lying on the stand with my limited knowledge about the read technique. The baseline is you have the person already, which is the absolute wrong way to approach any interrogation, in my opinion. And I don't know how to get a hold of, because if the read technique, if it can be used wrong, well, everything that can be used wrong will be used wrong. It's Murphy's law. If anything can go wrong, it will. Especially if you are predetermined in that it's allowed for me to lie to this suspect. And we have that case from a few months ago with the guy who confessed to his dad's murder, and his dad was still alive. And Richard Allen confessed to starting World War III. He confessed of murdering his mother while on phone with his mother.
Yes. He also said, I will say anything they want me to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
But these confessions are like transfer DNA. It sounds a lot better than it actually is.
Yes.
Oh, they have DNA. Slam dunk. No.
Oh, they also had a bullet. Don't forget that.
Oh, yeah, the bullet. Oh, God.
Do you want to start with that
Don't
one?
get us started with that one. That's what we'll be agreeing on way too.
Oh Lord, I can already hear somebody talking about tool mark bullshit.
Yeah, well, this tool mark in the Delphi case, the tool mark was, an analyst,
it took the cake.
Yeah, the bullet or the casing, the complete thing, was only cycled through the gun approximately 3 times for some odd reason. That was her conclusion. She did the same thing with another casing, cycled it, but it didn't produce good markings. So she decided to fire it and then compared the fired casing with the unspent cartridge. And then she concluded, well, it's the same gun. I'm sitting there going, are you for real, lady?
I'm just trying to imagine why you would cycle around through a gun 3 times.
Anyway.
On behalf of my state, all I have to say is I'm sorry. We have a really, really big problem with stupid people.
You know, I think that's an epidemic.
Kaiser is from Indiana. Not
fortunately, unfortunately.
Yeah. And yeah, why would you cycle around? Well, I have no. You cycle it, you put the cartridge back in the magazine, push it up, and then cycle it. I have no clue, but that was her conclusion, that unspent was cycled 3 times through the gun.
And it also wasn't compared to any other bullets
from
different guns.
No, it was compared to. She couldn't exclude 2 other guns, but had she known at the time about Mr. Allen's gun, she would have excluded another gun, which is, well, that's not how it works, lady. If you can't exclude it, it's because of your individual testing of that gun, if you even bother approving of this method.
Works.
Yeah,
it's
just, no. If you can't exclude it, it's because you tested it individually. Just because somebody else, some other gun has a better match, doesn't mean you now can exclude that gun. But she did.
Right. Yeah.
And this is why that practice needs to go the same way as lie detectors. Just because something has been done 100 years doesn't mean it's good, because this type of analysis was produced at the same time with measured skulls.
Well, Ronkel and I have a big agreement on this one, because the tool mark evidence has been abused so bad. You know, and the thing is, there's a lot of useful information that can come out of objective firearms testing and management. They take it a step too far, though. They think, oh, now I can make this into some scientific thing, and we can say this bullet matches this gun, and that is just false science. It's not true, and you know, it gets me because it's not, you know, it's so persuasive. There's so much good stuff that could come out of it, but then they've got to go that extra step, and it's just why, right?
Well, the problem is ultimately is that tool mark analysis is really great at exclusion, i.e., these 2 things cannot be, like, this cannot be fired out of this gun. But what they really want to be able to use it for is inclusion, i.e., this, you know, this was definitely fired out of this gun. And the issue is it's actually pretty dog shit at that. And so when you end up, I keep having a video I want to do that is actually a bit of a pain in the butt to do, but it involves, I got to like find a friendly locksmith or do a whole bunch of project stuff with it. But the problem that you have is that we don't actually know how many things match. And I may end up, I'm going to be at SHOT Show, and I'm going to see if I can try to talk a gun manufacturer into helping with my, with a little project. And basically I just want to buy a bunch of guns, but I want to buy a bunch of guns from where essentially they take off the line 10 sequentially made barrels, 10 sequentially made firing pins, 10 sequentially made, and basically create the sort of perfect difficult case for you know, tool mark analysis, and then just see, like, can they actually differentiate between these you know, between these? And I suspect that the answer is not nearly as much as they claim.
You're wondering that,
especially with blind testing.
There needs to be double-blind testing. There needs to be like 20 Glock 19s in a row, like you said, consecutive. And then you think you can match them? Match these 20 fired rounds to 20 guns. And we're not even saying maybe have a couple that aren't in there, right? Let's see how good it is by the independent third-party testing technique, and then have it certified over time. But there's no falsification. The problem is there is no independent testing. It's all incestuous testing.
Yeah.
And it's everybody says...
But Ian, you have your toolmark challenge still going, don't you?
I need to get the equipment for it, and one of the things would be those like 10 or whatever guns, and just be like, hey, what can they actually determine from these? What can they actually do? And I want to take that and like take donations and make it an actual prize. So like, if somebody can get this, we'll put money on it. And then the other thing we'll do is, you could just say, hey, defense lawyers, if you've got an expert for the prosecution, we'll show up, we'll set it up, we'll put in an envelope ahead of time, we'll send it to the prosecution ahead of time, a sealed, thing, just so that it can't be tampered with. And we'd probably do it with, you'll get the file, we'll keep the encryption key. And then once your expert has, given his answers, then we'll release the encryption key. And once, and so we can't possibly have done this after the fact in order to tamper with it. You had the information beforehand and did it. Like, how did your expert actually do? Because if they did well, then great, good for your expert. But if they did poorly, then not so great.
But what they can say is oftentimes good enough for a jury trial. Usually if you're basing it entirely on this toolmark evidence, that's a match, it's a problem. But, like a lot of times it's fair to say that this 38 caliber revolver is consistent with the firearm that fired this 38 caliber round bullet that was found in the head of the victim, and and there was 5 shots within the revolver. One of them was discharged. There was no.
If it was up to me, I would have a special jury instruction for any use by an expert of the word consistent.
Yeah,
really?
I was just about to say. The word consistent with.
I don't have a problem with them using consistent. No. They just also need to clarify what the hell that means to the jury, because if they don't clarify it, we're essentially misleading the juries.
Because
what would you clarify it to?
This beer is consistent with this beer. It doesn't mean it's the same beer.
Yeah.
The word consistent with is a word I don't like it, because it can mean anything, because it's up for interpretation, and it sounds much better than it actually does.
To
it's like
a reasonable
transfer
degree
DNA.
of scientific certainty, like when they say that.
Except that's not scientific. What I'm saying is that you'd say that this bullet could have been fired from this gun.
Yeah,
right, but could have. Right. When they say is consistent with, what the jury hears that as is was.
Yeah.
And what they should be given the clarification of is that just because it's consistent doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't mean that they've excluded even a single gun off the planet. Because, for instance, I'm drinking a can of Coke right now. That's consistent with me being a murderer. It's also consistent with me not being a murderer, because it's a product that's enjoyed by many people. It doesn't exclude either of those things.
And I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is that because Florida F Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE, they have experts that testify that bullets are matching, that if this bullet was fired from this gun, it matches. And so I would be happy with the step back from that to consistent, because I think that the matching thing is so obnoxious and abusive and unscientific that I'd be happy for the step back to consistent. Now you're saying that it should be even further step back to something else, which I'm not disagreeing with, but I'm just saying that what we have going on in Florida is so ridiculously bad that I would be happy with something less than that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer the language of not excluded, or something along those lines. Or, as I said, a jury instruction, which is, you have heard an expert testify that one thing is consistent with another. All that consistent means is that it is not excluded, and that provides very weak evidence to the conclusion that two things are in any way matched. And so, I would also like an expert, when they say something matches, if they don't actually have the ability to do it, and in most cases they don't, I think that should be disqualifying in the expert. Like, okay, sorry, that expert's evidence is going to be excluded.
Well,
because they're saying something that is just not within the realm of.
Again, it takes good judging and judges who are willing to do that kind of enforcement. And when I was with the public defender's office, we were working on cases to try to do that. I see somebody in chat here, Luke, was saying that Tobin got excluded on that issue. And which case was that he got excluded on?
The Delphi case.
The Delphi case, yeah.
Because Tobin is the expert on this stuff. He is the almost the foundation of challenging this, and for him to get excluded is ridiculous.
Well, I excluded him because he was going to get in the way of a conviction. So
he was excluded because his training was in metallurgy.
Metallurgy.
Yeah, thank you. And stuff like that, which the judge said the expert is not testifying about that. But then she took the stand and she was testifying about that because she compared an unspent cartridge with a spent one. That is textbook, because you have the heating of the material, you have the pressure. You cannot cycle a cartridge in the same form as it does when it's fired. It's stupid. But he was excluded. Yep.
Do you think that they're using these words like consistent and what have you to just confuse the jury? Because we've seen that so much in the YSL trial.
100%. It's absolutely that they know that these are words that mean one thing, but that the jury reads as another. And it is, it's absolutely intentional.
The use of that word is absolutely intentional, because if they would use the proper words for it, it would sound worse. Consistent with is a good word to. It's like correlation does not mean causation, and consistent with is a correlation word, not a causation word. And for instance, you have
it's just a non-exclusion is all it is. It's not even a correlation. You can't even say, you can't even go so far as to say anything about it.
It's like drowning and ice cream correlates. The diagrams correlate. Because you don't bathe as much in the summer. And you sell more ice cream in the summer. So the amount of ice cream sold correlates with the amount of drownings, but they are nowhere near each other. It's just a correlation on the diagram. It consistent with, but it actually doesn't mean jack crap.
Yeah, I think lots of things can be consistent. That doesn't mean they have anything to do with one another at all. The words matter. The use of language really, really matters, and juries will hear things like that and pick up on them. How do you stop words like that being used? Is there a way?
You set up legal principles to exclude that.
How hard is that to do?
Real easy.
Is it?
Sure. Treat it the same way as if as if a lawyer decided to say, this judge is a shithead, because they can sure keep that from happening. And so if the court is able to keep that from happening, then they're able to keep the jury from using consistent, or the expert from using the word consistent.
Yeah, but judges are often former prosecutors, and so are the appeals court, and so is the Supreme Court. So that is also a hurdle in this, because everybody wants a conviction, because everybody, I mean, you have a lot of prosecutors going, I have a 99% conviction rate, which for me only means, oh, so you knowingly prosecute innocent people.
Well, it might mean that they drop charges against, like they don't usually count charges that they dropped. So in that.
Yeah, but then the Innocence Project has 1 in 20 convictions in a criminal case is but per definition innocent people. So 5% of every conviction. So if they claim 99%, yeah, you're at least 4% away from an actual number.
Interesting, because I did my statistics on my appeals, and I always found that there's about a little 5, 6, maybe 7% of my cases that I appealed that I thought were just absolute problematic trials, which should have been written and reversed on appeal. And of those, the statistics are like 0.6% were actually reversed on appeal, which is really, that's only like 1 in 10. I mean, that should have been reversed. I think appellate courts need to be much more aggressive on overturning these kind of things. Judges need to be more aggressive about enforcing some standards on these prosecutors. But I don't know. I mean, as humanity gets dumber as we go, or less ethical, we're losing ethical standards in the bench, in the prosecutor's office, and defense attorneys across the board. The society, a democratic and free republic is dependent on an ethical and moral citizenry.
And when it comes to,
I don't know where you're going to find that, though.
For instance, in Fulton County, I've been checking Prosecutor Love's track record, and all the way back in 2012, she prosecuted a man, and the basics of the trial was a meth head had an argument with her boyfriend, got herself in the car, and started to drive around, and came to a local gathering where she started to hit people with her car.
As one does.
Yeah, as one does. And then backed up against this woman who was then stuck between that car and another car. And at this gathering was a correctional officer with a sidearm. And he decided, oh, hell no, and opened fire. The meth head was killed. Prosecutor Love prosecuted him. And in that trial, there were numerous errors that the defense attorney didn't catch. For instance, the defendant's silence was used against him in closing arguments. And but the
what
jury,
jurisdiction?
Fulton County, the same as the YSL trial, the same Prosecutor Love, who has been a prosecutor for 19 years. This is 12 years ago. But the jury decided to acquit this man on 2 of their counts, but convicted him of manslaughter. This 5 years later came up on appeal, and the appeals court said, oh, hell no, we are sending this back to the trial court, which now had a new judge, who said, this isn't even a crime. Because he was using his sidearm to protect people from getting killed, which is a self-defense in Georgia. And just, this isn't happening. But it took 5 years for this man to be released from prison. 5 years. And I'm saying this, an ethical behavior for some entire counties. And it took it up to appeal before somebody had the stones to say, oh, hell no. And we see it in the YSL case also. This judge, who is much better than the prior judge, keep punting things that are in the gray zone to appeals court. And I don't like that practice, because the appeals court, they might say, the totality of the circumstances, which is a phrase I hate, and they might say, nah, the totality of circumstances say it's not appealable. We don't know until they have their say in it. But Jesus Christ, this YSL trial is it's taken a year and a half of out of my life. I'm glad I covered it, but oh yeah,
Definitely learned a lot watching that trial. It is insane.
Yeah, and that is what the difference between the YSL trial and the Delphi trial is. This YSL, at least it is in front of cameras. We see it, we can cover it, we can talk about it, and it does make somewhat of a difference because, for instance, District Attorney Fani Willis was supposed to be re-elected on a post, but then somebody put their name on the ballot. A person who had basically 4 years out of law school, basically no experience, and she still got a third of the votes with no campaign, not even a web page. She still got a third of the votes, but Fani Willis still got re-elected for another 4 years, which for me, oh, if she only put up something. And Fani Willis, she got elected in 2020 during the last election, and she took office in January of 2021. She just got re-elected, but during those 4 years, she has a salary of about $200,000 a month. Somehow, she has a personal fortune of $8 million, allegedly.
I don't understand.
What's the source for that?
Yeah.
The source of that is she has some real estate all of a sudden, and she has bought a few cars. Her travels, they don't put with her salary, it doesn't make sense, and the number I've seen is a personal fortune of $8 million. I have to look more into it. I just like being trashy.
I'd just be really careful with that, because there's a bunch of web pages that will tell you somebody's, that will claim to tell you somebody's net worth, and they will. They're basically works of fiction. Or
we do know that she raised $1 million for her re-election campaign.
True, but I can also note that I raised $100,000 for the Extra Life, and I don't make that from,
Yeah, and I raised $30,000 for Zachariah Anderson's appeals fund, and I definitely don't have that to spare.
And I don't really so much. I mean, that's all a big question mark. The fundamental problem with the Atlanta prosecutor's office is that they're behaving extremely unethically. They're creating a terribly flawed trial by going on for 300 days plus on a stupid. It's poorly managed, poorly done, unethically prosecuted. It's just terrible in every possible way. So just as a matter of competence, I mean, that should have been a mistrial, months and months ago. And I still don't understand how the Georgia Supreme Court is not shutting this thing down, and how this prosecutor is allowed to continue. I mean, I don't know if you've got a corrupt governor or corrupt the system. There's just at some point all the checks and balances fail because the whole system's broken.
Well, in
nobody's
Georgia,
ever worried if there's a wrongful conviction. They're worried about acquittals, wrongful or otherwise.
Yeah, and in Georgia, during trial, you have to have the judge's permission to bring things to the Supreme Court. Judge Glanville tried to stop Attorney Steele from appealing his. By Judge Glanville, he got 20 days for contempt of court, but that was reversed. instantly. Once the Supreme Court had it, they just said, oh hell no. So that's gone. But he still tried. And he actually mistook the civil contempt with criminal contempt. So he put him into criminal contempt for not following the court's instruction, which was, if you just tell me who told you about this ex parte meeting, I will expunge this contempt of court thing, which is civil contempt. But he did the criminal contempt. So, and Judge Glanville is the chief judge of Fulton County. He is supposed to know these things.
Well, and that was such an abuse, because that was, to me, was a big deflection on the fundamental error that should cause a mistrial in this case, should cause a reversal. The single thing that the one thing I really zoned in on when you were working, Nik, was that basically there was a testifying witness on the stand who was brought back in chambers with the prosecutor and the judge, in which the defense attorneys were excluded and told about plea deals and basically forced into testifying, came back on the stand and testified in front of the jury after that ex parte meeting without the defense. That, to me, it's game over. It's mistrial right there. Why there's no mistrial after that? The Georgia Supreme Court should have shut this case down right there when they instead of this change of judge thing, and now we're going to draw it out for another year, and then it's going to be another year of appeals. And that, to me, was mistrial city right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got from Toy Trials and Reviews. MSN reports 8 million, and then Ghosts have here, Willis pay as an attorney only accounts for 110,000 of this 2.7 million yearly figure, with other income sources making up the vast majority of her significant earnings, which is 5 million in real estate and 2 million in blue chip stocks through companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Berkshire Hathaway. So apparently, because she claimed she was broke before she became a district attorney, because she was a defense attorney before this. One of her clients was the self-confessed founder of YSL. And he's not even in this trial. He's not even mentioned in this trial, a self-confessed founder of the YSL gang. So, yeah. So it's a bit more than this usual web pages, which is quite interesting. Where did all of her money come from? And I don't know.
I mean, it could be legal and fine.
Yeah, she might get an heritage. I have no idea. But her father, who is a former... he's also a lawyer, but he's also a former member of the Black Panthers, I believe. I have no, I don't know how that.
The problem comes to I'm really big cities. There's some problems in our big cities in the United States. I wonder if that transfers to other countries, but clearly most of the more dense the population, the more difficult it is for the populace to root out corruption within the system. Maybe there's more opportunities for corruption. Maybe the incentives are greater. Maybe the ability to stay anonymous is greater. When you have a small town, things are less concealable, maybe. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say the more dense the population, the more dense the population. But
well stated. That's a Runkleism right there. That's good.
Well, I mean, we have only to look at like the major cities: New York, Chicago, LA.
And this is from the man from Indiana. You came in here going, sorry about Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of the least populous state in that general area. Like, literally, our state has a population of about 6 million people. Every state on our border, north, south, east, and west, has over 10 million. It's because we just don't like everybody else.
Really?
We just don't like people. We just like, nah, get out.
Yeah, nah.
Mm.
I know how you feel. We're on an island over here. We don't have to worry too much.
And we're kind of landlocked over here in the Midwest. You know what I mean?
Mm. Oh, I have something at Law Kong Express. If you don't follow his channel, you should. He does amazing work in the Zachariah Anderson case. He asked me to tell Cosney about Rosalio's door. And I have it here. Now, the Zachariah Anderson case. I've been following that since more or less the beginning of my channel. According to the state, Zachariah Anderson hid by the mailboxes. And that is why Rosalio didn't see him when he knocked on the door and then started to bludgeon him.
By the way, I'd just like to ask one quick question. Have they ever found that body?
Nope.
No.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to verify that. Needed somebody else to say it out loud.
So according to the state, Mr. Anderson hid by the mailboxes next to his door. This is an apartment complex in the height of Seavid, 9 p.m. at night, in a high lit up area. He managed to hide there. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, unless he's a house elf from Harry Potter, I don't see him, hiding behind those.
This is just one of those, playing word games. It sounds good. And, was he hiding? Because when you say that, it sounds like concealment. It sounds like, and then if you confronted with a picture, but the mental image has already been painted in the brain. This is deceptive, playing word games in order to get convictions. I'm just disgusted. This prosecutor in this case was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I'm very, it was just terrible. This is the same guy. Wasn't he the same guy in, what was that other case? Just terrible prosecution.
The self-defense shooter in Wisconsin. What's his name?
Oh, you mean Apple River one?
The Rittenhouse. It's the same judge.
Right.
Oh no,
same judge, same prosecutor.
Same judge.
Not the same judge, but not the same prosecutor.
Well, he's his boss. So Gravely is the boss of Binger.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those trials are 2 years apart, and that judge came out of retirement for the Zachariah Anderson trial. And his wife was, the judge's wife was being treated for cancer. And they had to postpone the trial because the judge fell and hit his head severely. And if you go back and check the judge in the Rittenhouse trial and how he acted in the Zachariah Anderson trial, it's like watching two different people.
Yeah.
And also, this judge allowed in Brady violations. He allowed in so much stuff that should have been excluded. It pisses me off to this day, and that is one of the big reasons why I still to this day hold fundraisers for his appeal, because everything that he was convicted of was DNA, which was transfer DNA on a pin-sized spot on the back of the van, where the prosecutor claimed he put a 6'2", 270-pound man, bludgeoned and knifed to death within a rolled up carpet, 5 foot by 7 foot, in a 3 foot by 4 foot area in the back of his car. Do you see?
Let's also not forget the man has chronic back problems.
Yeah, chronic back problems.
But even without the back problems, can you imagine the struggle of him doing that by himself and nobody at an apartment complex saw anything? There's no blood on the sidewalk. There's no blood drag marks. Nothing.
No driplets, no drag marks, no nothing. So he picked up a 6 foot, 200-pound man, picked up a 6'2", 270-pound man, rolled up in a carpet, bloodied out, carried him out, and just managed to put this rolled up carpet 5 feet by 7 foot with a 270-pound in an area that is 3 foot by 4 feet. And Zachariah was never spotted on any cameras, nowhere, not at the scene, no DNA from Zachariah Anderson on the crime scene, no nothing. But he still got convicted because the jury heard DNA.
Yeah, and I remember where the
was
DNA
Zachariah
was found.
Anderson known to be a wizard?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That might explain this.
yeah.
That whole case, and I kept like asking you but there's got to be other evidence putting him there. There's got to be other, and this was like the best. The stuff that you're talking about was the best. And don't forget the. In fact, I even put this in Death Penalty Desired. You know the
munch,
the sleeping confession.
He
dream
kept
sequence.
silent for 2 years, but then Munch, the prison snitch, was placed in his cell, and all of a sudden he makes a sleeping confession. He confessed to the murder in his sleep.
In his sleep.
The dream sequence was okay. If it weren't so ridiculous, it would be hilarious.
Yeah, but the jury heard Zachariah Anderson, his ex, her new boyfriend was the victim and stalking. What they didn't hear was about the custody case between Zachariah and his ex. Of course, he is collecting evidence against his ex new boyfriend and keep it in a folder. Because if Ian, have you handled divorce cases?
Nope. Stay away from them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usual. But if you can't afford your lawyer to do all the investigations, you get told to investigate yourself. And Rosalio Goiteres Jr., who was the victim, had then Sadie, who was Zachariah's ex. He also dated at least one more woman and had 2 more on the works, so to speak. So it's not like he was mutual with Sadie, but Sadie was mutual to him. Yeah, it's so much bad things about that, but it all boils down to that pin-sized transfer DNA of Rosalio.
Which was ridiculous. If you remember, it was on a plastic on the side, and supposedly he cleaned up that truck, that van, and that's why there was no DNA. And it was a pinprick that supposedly on the side, which was absurd because of all the places that it would be. That would not be it. That would be the first place. It was just so that DNA location was absurd in every respect. And there was also no control on the crime scene between the cop and the crime scene. So if anything, it could have been transferred between the cop, if at all. It was all, there was so much.
And it was
stupidity.
still dusty. The car was still dusty. That's what's
This is the cleaned up. This is the cleaned up van, as the prosecutor alleged.
Yeah, it looks really spick and span clean.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah,
well, and also it's really difficult to clean out blood in a way that doesn't, you know, that.
Yeah, but the pinprick was not. It was not on the ground there. It was up on the side rail. Supposedly, they're saying, and it was. Oh, it's so stupid. And the fact that there's no way that this man, because Zachariah Anderson is a small guy, and wasn't the dead guy like 200 and something pounds?
6'2", 270 pounds.
And so, how big was Zachariah Anderson?
6 foot, 200 pounds.
It was not, and so for him to struggle with a body that's supposedly bleeding, and this is the clean van. That's the clean van. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Yes, and the sardines that were unopened but left under the seat to mask the scent of a dead body. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
The things that Gravely came up with is just absurd.
This is what you call forcing the evidence into your theory of the crime. And I this happens often. This is a very problematic human thing to do, which is you come up with this idea. Okay, here's what could have happened, and then everything that you encounter, evidence, has to be crammed in to that theory, even when it's absurd. It's like, well, why don't you just have an open mind and think, well, you know what, this is inconsistent with the theory, so let's modify our theory. Instead, it's like, well, let's modify the evidence. Let's characterize the evidence, like the hiding and the, all these crazy things. Oh.
Yeah. And in closing arguments, Binier said maybe 9 times. And then he said, through a miracle, 1 drop of Rosalio's blood managed to escape this. This crime took place in a 9-minute time span, where Zachariah was supposed to have bludgeoned him and knifed him to death, rolled him up in the carpet, hermetically sealed this rolled up bloody carpet, carried it out without drag marks or droplets. But once he put the body in the trunk, 1 droplet made its way to the side of the back of the van. And then he managed to drive home without being spotted on any traffic cams. And if he took all the side routes, he would have to have an average speed of 70 miles an hour on side roads. And only 1 pin-sized dot of blood escaped that.
Nick, you missed one point. Gravely, in his closing argument, actually it was rebuttal. Was it rebuttal? Yeah, he said that it was blood. It was never determined to be blood.
No,
Right.
there wasn't enough to test for both blood and DNA, so they only tested for DNA.
But he lied and said it was blood in the closing arguments.
Yeah, and the DNA, by the way, since they didn't have male relatives to Rosalio, they could only go by the female relatives. So they only had 50% of his DNA structure to compare with to begin with.
And didn't we talk about with Tiffany Roy, who's the DNA expert down here in Florida, who, because I remember you confronted me with the cross or the presentation of the DNA evidence, which was so absurd. It was nothing I'd ever seen before. And I'm like, this is way problematic.
Yeah. The question was from the prosecutor, can you, with a scientific level of certainty, say that this was a match to Rosalio Gutierrez Jr.? And she said yes.
Yeah,
that was the entirety of the DNA presentation of the evidence. There was no how many percentage, how much, 1 in a trillion, 1 in a watt, 1 in a watt, and nothing of the sort. Just the answer.
What was yes. Tiffany's? Because I remember she's the DNA expert that I really know is.
She wrote a letter to the Kenosha crime lab, but I haven't had her on, so I haven't talked to her. But she wrote a letter, which she eviscerated. Here's the problem. The person in charge of the quality of that crime lab is the same person who testified in that trial. It's pissing me off to this day.
It was so unusual the way that examination, or that direct examination from the prosecutor Gravely of the DNA expert, it was unlike anything I've ever seen in any kind of DNA presentation. It was obviously problematic just from the way it was presented, and I didn't even get into the nuts and bolts of the DNA. It was like, so could this was him, right? Yes. Okay, no further questions. It was like, that's not the way you qualify it.
In Rosalio's apartment, on his, if it was the cell phone, they found DNA from an unknown male on the phone that was found in his freezer with his wallet.
Yeah, the freezer phone that got forgotten about. Like, how is that consistent with anything? That was not consistent with the state's theory at all.
Yeah. His wallet was found on the sofa beside where Mr. Rosalio had because apparently he, at some point during this bludgeoning, he sat down on the sofa because there was pooling of blood on the headrest and pooling of blood on the sofa. His wallet was beside him, no money in it, and credit card was gone. The credit card and the phone was found in the freezer by his mother after the crime scene was released. And they tested that DNA, and it was not from Rosalio, not from his son, not from his relatives. It was from an unknown male. And they tested it against Zachariah, and it didn't match at all. And they never tested any of the other suspects because he wasn't allowed a third-party defense.
That was one of the worst prosecutions. It was really bad. You know, and in comparison, right next door was the guy that ran over all the people in the Wisconsin parade. You remember that? That prosecutor did a great job. That was a prosecution.
Yeah.
And that was right next door, right? Wasn't that in
And since then, we have found out, if I remember correctly, I wish that Solomon was around, that there were, the week before, there was a series of burglaries, including assaults, just a week before, in that area.
Yep.
But Zachariah Anderson he will be eligible for parole when he's 86.
And what you're hearing, this summary is exactly, that's like the best evidence against Zachariah. You know, it's like that's the best evidence. That is the evidence against him, which is all absurd. And there's so many holes and problems with the theory. I mean, and that prosecutor was terrible. Wasn't he signaling one of the witnesses too at some point?
Yeah,
like
he was mouthing at
everything.
The minor witness.
Yeah.
Because they put the kid up on the stand.
Yeah. And she clearly made statements that was not true. And they had to stipulate that this part about the gun is not true. It never happened.
Yeah.
They had to stipulate.
And the mom sign languaging to the daughter from the from the jury.
Yeah, and she claimed that I only have the basics of American Sign Language. She teaches sign language.
She teaches sign language.
Yeah.
And isn't MLS Law doing like a documentary on this that's going to come out? When is that coming out? Do you know?
I don't know. We can bugger him about it so he can release it anytime soon.
So
he's been working on it for quite some time.
Shortly.
Another thing that really surprised me that the daughter said was she told him all about how her dad grew marijuana hydroponically and described the dirt. And I was going, and y'all didn't catch this?
Well, yeah, they asked her all about it and everything like that. And, you know, she had all this information, but then they showed her a picture of actual, like, the dried marijuana in a bag. And she's like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, girly, either you know what them buds look like or you don't. Come on now. Don't. I ain't the smartest. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed, but goddamn, that is some brainlet level stupidity right there. If you're trying to sell me that one, I got a bridge in London to sell you. Jesus Christ.
When it comes down to it, I believe what actually happened here is the state bundled together the stalking charges with the intentional homicide and hiding of a corpse charges, and there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. There was all of this basically bad character evidence put forth about Zachariah Anderson, and they were able to get all this bad character evidence in because those charges were all bundled together in the same trial. So they were able to point to this bad man who had a motive because he supposedly was jealous of this man who was dating his ex-girlfriend, who they've had children together, and there was a custody dispute, and they brought all this stuff in which had nothing to do with any homicide. They didn't even prove there was a homicide. But they didn't have to, because all of this other stuff came up that made him look like the Batman. And then they bring DNA in. That's it. It's done. So if the state hadn't have brought in the stalking charges at the same trial, I believe it would have been potentially a different outcome. However, I also am jaded towards juries, and I think if they see DNA, that's it, it's done.
Well, and also then you add that the sleepy confession, which the jailhouse informant comes in and says the guy's confessing he was asleep and he's dreaming. He said, "I did it. You know,
I don't
it's
even
ridiculous.
see how that's admissible.
Yeah,
it was.
that was.
Because the judge allowed it.
Oh, yeah.
Judge
Munch
allowed it.
Yeah.
was brought up to the stand, and he told this fabulous information. And then on cross-examination, well, are you? How many meetings have you had with the prosecution? Do you get anything in return for this? And he said no, and the prosecution vehemently said absolutely nothing, because Munch was on federal charges that would have put him away for life. He had,
he did well out of it.
yeah, 3 months. 3 months after the sentencing, Munch was a free man, and he moved to Florida.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing was just wackadoo, because I mean, he goes on this entire elaborate, how, heard all these things in his sleep, and then whenever Zach woke up, he allegedly, like, he looked into his eyes, he knew something was wrong, and he said, "Did you do it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I killed him. He killed that guy." I'm like, what?
So
Yeah, and it's funny because if you replay the trial, the actual court TV feed, he's up there, he says those lines, he says that stuff, and then the camera cuts back to Zach, and Zach is sitting there like,
What?
like he literally has this look on his face, like, and that basically is kind of like the look he's conveying, and it's just like, I'm not again, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I'm a total layman going, look, I smell bullshit. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, his face really said it all. He was blindsided by what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
of
I
course,
got a
all the
special. Can I
pundits were
change the
like,
topic for a second?
Yeah,
I have
Yeah.
something since Ian's on here. He's one of my favorite gamers. I got a gamer suggestion for you. Have you ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
This is one of the best games that you can possibly buy. It is called Scout. It's a great fun card game, and it's a little dinky thing. It's small, very hard to find. This is very difficult to find, but you're a gamer, and I highly recommend Scout. Sorry, diversion. But Runkle is here now.
Have to see.
Yeah, check it out. It's Scout. It's real. These are like these little. This is the company is called. I don't know. It's Scout for the show. It's a. They do these little games like this, and this one is just phenomenal. We play this all the time. Anyway, sorry about that. That was a complete derail. I apologize, but
no worries. Does anybody want to hear Munch's testimony?
Oh boy.
oh God,
Much.
let's
Let's see.
die.
Here is Munch in Prison Orange.
For the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated.
Mr. Washington, can you state your first and your last name and spell your names for the record?
Marquand Washington, Marquan, Washington, Washington.
How old are you today?
31.
And where have you most regularly resided in your life, lived in your life?
Racine, Wisconsin.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
How many times?
6.
And are you in custody right now?
It's always good
for
when they're like,
charges that are
I don't
called
know.
Federal charges.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Does that mean the U.S. government is prosecuting you?
Yes, sir.
So it's not the state of Wisconsin that's doing it.
No, sir.
And pursuant to that federal charge, in general, where are you being housed? Are you in a federal jail or prison, or are you in a state institution?
I'm in a state institution in KCDC, but it's mixed with federal as well.
Okay. And so KCDC is a institution or jail here in Kenosha?
Yes, sir.
Judge, could you ask the witness to talk right to the microphone? Can barely hear him.
Yeah. You got to speak up. Okay, can you do that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, counsel.
Highway of maximum security.
As part of your federal prosecution, have you entered into a plea agreement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I first want to talk about what your federal charge is. What do you understand you are charged with right now?
Conspiracy.
Okay, and is that to conspiracy to deliver drugs, illegal drugs?
Yes, sir.
And what are the drugs that you are charged with conspiracy to deliver?
Cocaine and marijuana.
And would it be accurate to say that the cocaine that you are charged with conspiracy to deliver is 30 plus kilos of cocaine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what quantity of marijuana are they saying that you were in a conspiracy to deliver?
I believe
Who cares? It's
600
marijuana.
pounds.
Okay. And so you've
that's
entered a
still a
plea.
lot.
In that case, is it a plea of guilty?
Not guilty yet, but
Okay. So what is your status right now in that case?
Witness's last word was but.
I thought you said not guilty yet.
correct.
Oh, I thought
said
you,
yeah.
I thought you said, yeah, you're right, that mic doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay. Should I go on?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
So, and is it your plan to enter a plea on those charges?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have you entered into a plea agreement with the government?
Yes, sir.
And is that a document or agreement you've signed?
Yes, sir.
And does it indicate you are going to plead guilty to some charges?
Yes, sir.
So did you do these offenses that they're charging you with then?
Not the amount, but yes, sir, I have.
Okay. So you're pleading guilty to the charges that we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
It would have been
Alright.
really funny if they blew up his
And,
deal on the basis of, well, now we don't need one.
Does the plea
Right.
agreement, what does the plea agreement say about whether, if you know anything about other crimes, whether you should talk about it or testify or any of that? What do you understand your plea agreement to say about that kind of stuff?
The plea agreement basically, well, it said that if I was to enter into this plea agreement and sign it, I would have to be honest about anything that I had knowledge about.
Okay. And so you're supposed to be obligated to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is there,
I'm just going to say this out loud. A prison snitch has everything to gain from lying. Because if he's not believed, nothing happens. If he's believed, ta-da, he's out. And
Are you
Months
saying
is out.
prison snitches might not be the best source of information?
yes, I know this is very hard to believe, but career criminals sometimes lie. I know it's
So-
hard.
No.
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 No. I mean, just what? What?
So here in Canada, you're actually required to give the jury a special instruction for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If you've got if your witness is what they call a Vetrovec witness, which is the case, you're required to actually let the jury know, like, hey, this guy is super suspect, and you should not believe him unless there's actual corroborating evidence. So it's actually got to be evidence that is outside of that person's own testimony. Otherwise, you should just not. They should just not accept it.
Well,
I don't think it's a bad rule.
It's pretty good.
No.
What's strange to me is it seemed like up until Munch testified that the state's theory was that Mr. Rosario Gutierrez had been bludgeoned. And until Munch came up with this, die madness, then the state goes, yeah, he was bludgeoned and stabbed. And I'm
Yeah.
going, can y'all just make up your mind? Because none of this makes any sense.
Yeah. Up until his testimony, it was all bludgeoned, and then on the stand, Munch mentioned a knife, and all of a sudden they had to change their tactics. Well, he started with bludgeoning, and then he finished him off with a knife.
Yeah, bludgeoned and stabbed, even though no information to that effect anywhere. Yeah, just
No.
Who brings all
Nothing.
these extra weapons to a crime?
Just in case.
Yeah.
Like, you just never know.
Oh, and no murder weapon was retrieved, by the way, and
Yeah.
neither was the victim.
No.
there a benefit that you believe you would receive if you provide information on different cases?
If I'm honest about everything, possibly yes.
So what do you what do you understand could be your advantage? So like how could you be helped if you're honest about some other crimes?
What do you mean, like?
Well, like what advantage what's in it for you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, leniency on sentencing, I guess.
Okay.
So.
And do you know what that means? Like what number that means?
No.
Okay. Has anybody told you what the number is?
No.
And what is your understanding of what happens to you and your agreement if you are dishonest to a court or to authorities? What happens to you if you're dishonest?
I probably wouldn't get anything for it.
Okay. Are they able to hold that against you?
Yes.
So could you be worse off if you lie?
Probably so, yes.
Okay. And could you mess up your whole agreement?
Yes, sir.
So, and have you been warned about that? Have people told you, here's what might happen if you make something up or if you lie?
Yes, sir.
So you feel like you understand what the consequences are if you were to tell lies in a courtroom or to authorities about any matter? You think you understand what happens?
Yes, sir.
So how long have you been in a jail in Kenosha on these federal charges? Like when did you first get to Kenosha for jail on the federal charges?
I believe 15 months ago.
You remember what month it was or not?
December, I think, of 2021.
Okay. So, and at some point during your time in the Kenosha jail system, did you come to be housed with a person who you found to be named Zachariah Anderson?
Yes, sir.
And what did you call that person? Like when you were speaking to them, what did you call him?
I called him Zach.
Zach. And were you, if you know, did you room with that individual?
I called him Opportunity.
You were actually a roommate of that person.
Yes, sir.
And which institution? So there's a downtown jail and then there's KCDC, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you been in both of them during this period of time of incarceration or just one?
I started off at downtown area for a week or so, and then I went to KCDC.
Okay. So is the place that you roomed with this person that you said his name Zachariah Anderson, was that downtown or was that out at KCDC?
It was at KCDC.
And when I say that you room with someone at KCDC, tell me what physically that means. Are there 5 or 10 roommates, or just, how many people are, when you say you room with somebody, how many people does that mean?
Just 2 people, me and another person, which was Zach.
Okay. So for a period of time, it was just you and Zach?
Correct.
Okay. And is the person you're identifying as Zach, is that person here in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
So could you point that person out today, and Mr. Washington, tell me what that person is wearing today?
Yes, sir.
Please point that person out.
Yes, sir. He is right there in the gray suit with the gray blue tie.
I'd ask the record to reflect identification of the defendant, Zachariah Anderson.
Pointing at the defendant.
Mr. Washington, did you room?
Yeah. Going back to the Delphi trial, none of the so-called eyewitnesses of the bridge guy, none of them pointed to Richard Allen and said, yeah, that's the guy I saw at the bridge, because the prosecution never asked the question because they were afraid of the answer.
Room with the defendant from a time period from about December 22nd, 2021 through January 31st, 2022. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
So if I calculate correctly, that's approximately 5 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during that time, did you and the defendant come to know each other?
Yes, sir.
And did you have discussions with the defendant during that period of time?
Yes, sir, we did.
And at some point, did you discuss your case?
Yes, sir, I did.
And at some point, eventually, did the defendant discuss his case?
Yes, sir.
So when you discussed your case, who else was around when you were talking about the details of your case with the defendant?
Just me and Zach.
When the defendant discussed his case, who, if anyone, was around other than you and the defendant?
Just me and Zach.
What, if anything, can you say about during the period of time you were with the defendant, whether you observed any behavior about him having trust issues about people or being paranoid or worried about the government?
He had a lot of paranoia and different trust issues when we was in the cell.
Okay, you got to speak very clearly, okay?
Okay.
I mean,
All
no
right.
shit.
So
He's
what
in
sort
a
of things
cell.
did you see that caused you to think, okay, this guy is
And
thinking
this
the
guy
government
is
doing
not
stuff?
a
When I was
psychologist.
in the
I
cell,
can
he
guarantee that.
initially stated that it was a couple times that he thought maybe that the government was putting informants in the cell with him, or maybe bugging the cell
That
or
look of
recording
confusion.
things.
Like
Out of
what?
knowledge.
And did you ever see him do any searches?
Yes.
And what did he tell you, or what did he indicate to you he was searching for?
He was checking to see if there was any recording devices around or some type of camera or some event, just looking.
And did he ever discover anything?
No.
And what, if anything, can you say about whether the defendant, what his opinion was of his own intelligence or about an ability to be outsmart people?
Well, he thought he was pretty much smarter than everybody, pretty much.
And what sort of thing did you hear that caused you to believe that?
Just the things that he said about, like, eventually when he talked about his case or how he would deny things, but thought that he was going to beat the case, actually, and that you guys were trying to frame him and he was going to get out.
Who did he say was framing him? Do you remember?
He said the police framed him.
Did he say how they had framed him, what they had done?
No, he just said that they was planting evidence and trying to put something on him that he didn't do.
All right, so he indicated to you specifically that the police had planted evidence?
Correct.
Was that said to you once or more than once?
Said a few times.
Okay, and can you indicate any
Did
ways
he ever
that
figure
you
out
and he
how
helped
we were
each other
planting
out?
the
In other words,
evidence?
anything
'Cause
that
he was never
caused
supposed to find that out.
caused you and him to begin to trust each other for any reason?
Nope. Well, when I was in the cell, like I said, we became close. Sometimes, like if I needed him, he would come through for me, and if he needed me, I would come through for him.
And give me an example of the kind of ways you mean.
Like the first time ever was because he usually don't share or do nothing or order much. He holds on to the stuff that he have. He had some food that I needed to cook with at the time, which was tuna, and I asked him, could I get the tuna, and I would order him, 4 back for the tuna because he did it before with other people, and some people didn't come through on the end. And I showed him that I come through.
So, Your Honor, Mr. Washington is sort of soft-spoken and the words come out kind of quickly. Can we just ask the jury, can they understand him so far? I just want to be sure that they're able to understand him.
Sounds like it.
Okay, good. So, Mr. Washington, it sounds like you negotiated a loan kind of thing, right? You pay me now or I'll pay you later kind of a deal.
Sir.
Okay. Was there a point where, in discussing the defendant's case, that he talked about any involvement of his brothers?
Yes, he said that he couldn't have contact with his brothers because you guys basically try to say that they had something to do with whatever he had going on with his case, but he didn't.
And did he indicate?
Yeah. His Zachariah's brothers were initially they tried to pin everything on Solomon and the other brother. There was absolutely zero evidence. So through this guy, they are trying to they are trying, but nah. It's this prosecutor has now retired since. And I wish him all the bad things in the world. I truly do. I will not say it out loud on stream because I want my stream to be still on, but Binger, you evil. Yeah.
Binger.
Gravely.
Oh, Gravely. Yeah, Gravely.
You keep saying Binger. Gravely makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that nasal. Yeah.
But
Did his brothers have anything to do with any of this?
He said they didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was he acting about that? Was he sad? Was he very calm about that? What was his reaction to the idea that
Judge,
hold on, let me finish. That his brothers would be involved?
Judge, objection leading, and he's been doing it repeatedly. I let it go, but definitely leading.
So I directed him to a topic, and then I've asked what, if anything, was said about that. That's not leading.
And then gave 4 options.
Well,
And if I
no. I think it could be less leading.
Okay, so
I think it can be less leading.
what, if any, reaction
He doesn't want to give
did
an
the
actual
defendant
ruling,
have to
which is that it was
the issue of his
leading.
brothers being suggested as being involved in this incident?
Well, he was angry about it. He was mad, actually pissed off. I don't know if I could say that, but
And were you able to find out some personal details about the defendant's background?
yes, I was.
Okay, so what, if anything, did you come to know about his family
What
in
if
terms of who
anything?
got along with those kind of things?
I found out that he had brothers. He had supposedly have a sister or something. I don't recall a sister. I don't know if it's a sister or not. Him and his dad wasn't close growing up. He lived with him or something like that, but they didn't have a always good relationship. He told me that they fought one time. He was tough on him and his brothers, stuff like that.
Did he say anything about anyone dying?
He mentioned something about somebody passing away, but I don't remember who it was.
And did he indicate whether that was a problem for him with his own family?
Not that I can recall. I just know that he said he was split up. He wasn't with his mom or his dad. I don't know how he got split up or what was the reason why he was split up.
Did he tell you in terms of sort of everyday jobs, not doing illegal stuff, but as terms of everyday jobs, what sort of professions he had worked in?
Yes, he told me that he was in did cable and construction work like that.
Okay, the first one was cable man.
Yeah.
Cableman, okay, and the other was construction.
Correct.
And then, did you have any topics that you felt like the two of you bonded over? You had some things in common.
Yes.
What was that?
Illegal things.
Okay, so what?
Objection. I think we've revisited this before. I think I'd have to be heard outside the presence of the jury here.
Yeah, because he's basically getting into character evidence right now.
Yeah.
What would the relevance of this particular answer be?
Okay, do you want me to? I would reveal a lot of details by saying it. I will if the court wants me to, but I want to be careful.
The time again. This shouldn't be long. We'll talk about the case.
The other thing with this trial is the jury spent about a half to maybe 2/3 of it outside. So
Yeah.
by the end of the 3 weeks, they were tired and bored. They legit spent hours and hours in the break room because the jury room was upstairs.
Yeah.
There were so many
Yeah.
sidebars.
All right.
So,
Well, the objection was.
So
and
the
the,
objection, Judge, was that, and I
Yeah.
was concerned about this as I read the reports, not only from the interview that Mr. Washington had with Mr. Gravely, but from the debriefs that there was some discussion supposedly between the two, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Washington, about what the very things that we were worried about before, accusations of drug dealing, the other case he has, and so when he asked about other regular jobs, I thought, okay, we're going to avoid that. I thought we were going to avoid it, but then the very next question was, his answer was about what else did you discuss about? I don't know if it was about work or whatever, but it was, and I think he just said illegal things or about what they bonded over. And so clearly that's where it's going, or, maybe we can nip it in the bud here, but that's the reports from his interviews, in at least a portion of it involve talking about Zach's other case and, going back and forth from California and that sort of thing.
Gravely.
yeah, so I do intend to bring
Yeah, and Gravely intends to bring in prior bad acts.
these details up. So this is not something that I'm doing accidentally. So that Mr. Washington has indicated in his debriefing to us in our discussions with him, and this is revealed in the reports.
Yeah, let's skip ahead. And by the way, Mr. Washington, Munch, is still there. He is not excused during this.
I said the news media and the complaints. So
Again, I'm not aware of any specific coverage, and maybe you guys are aware of it, and I don't about things.
Let's skip ahead. Hey.
But the problem is we have to realize that the rules generally exclude this propensity evidence. It is clearly barred in order to prove that the defendant has got a character trait or
Totally agree.
propensity to commit any crime.
Totally agree.
And there are a number of exceptions. If you go to the textbooks, Professor McCormick said it has to, for admission, it has to bear the signature of the accused in identity cases. It has to.
And then he goes on a rant all the time. So they are still. Oh, Jesus Christ! All right, this goes over a day. Yeah.
He rants for
Yeah.
quite a while, and then into the next morning.
Thank you to Wilhelm Media for improving the sound, because sound was extraordinarily bad.
I don't think anyone really had the floor last time we left, Judge. It was simply the state had inquired that they would do some research, send over cases. We've received the cases, reviewed them. So.
And what did he tell you about?
Or you being called from here, we let you know whether you should come in tomorrow or not. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Or a better way? Well, think about it, and we'll talk about it later as we get more updates on the weather. Go ahead, Mr. Gravely.
Mr. Washington, when last we were in court, I asked you a question about what, if anything, that the defendant told you about a police search of his house involved in the investigation.
Okay.
What, if anything, did he tell you about a search of his home?
Well, he told me that you guys had raided his house or whatever, and that you had found a nice amount of money and a little bit of weed.
And what did he tell you about? What, if anything, did the defendant tell you about where his house was? Did he describe his house to you in some way?
He told me that he lived in Mequon and that he owned his house. He said it wasn't big as everybody else. It was just a small little house, but he owned it.
Okay. Was there a time when you were observing the defendant when it appeared to you he was having a nightmare?
Yes.
And what do you remember about that incident?
There it is.
I remember I was
There we are.
I was laying there the night before. I told him about the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
And you're quoting as best you remember?
Yes.
All right. And so did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about this nightmare
Hang
that
on.
you heard?
Can you go back and look at Zach's face?
This is insane. This is the
It's so
most
good.
insane thing.
Yeah.
That this gets in front of the jury. What in the hell is this? This is insane right here.
It's like a bad soap opera.
I mean, this should never have been. This should never have been shown to the jury.
Yeah, it is.
Watch Zach's
Yes.
face.
All right.
He goes,
And
what the
so
fuck?
did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about this nightmare that you heard him have, or these words he said?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so if you know about how long after that happened, did you bring it up to him?
I brought it up to him the next day.
Okay. And what did you say to him about it?
I pretty much told him, I asked him about the situation about that he was locked up about, and I told him that he was talking in his sleep or yelling about some stuff in his sleep, and he was like, "What did I say?" And I pretty much told him what he said, and he's like, "Yeah, you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you said it." So I asked him a question. I'm like, "Did you do it?" Like, what? You know what I'm saying? I think you did it. And we went from there.
And so what did the defendant respond when you said, "I think you did it," based on the nightmare? What did he say?
I told him to look me in my eyes and tell me that you didn't do it. And he jumped down from the bed and he looked me in my eyes and he said, "I did it." He said, "That's the reason I have the nightmares. I'm unable to sleep at night because I think about it all the
What's
time."
That is so stupid. That is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. That is so ridiculously dumb.
When you press play, watch him really carefully.
Look me in the eyes.
Was there a discussion at some point where the defendant said to you, "Is it that obvious?"
Yes, he did.
And so when did that come up?
Section leading, the very definition of leading.
Rephrase your question.
When, if ever, did the defendant say to you, "Is it that obvious?"
Objection. Same exact.
That is
Yeah,
that is like insanely leading.
But I mean, is this the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your life? That the guy is dreaming, killed, die. And then he says, "Hey, I asked you about the question." And he jumps down from the bed, looks him in the eyes and says, "I did it." I mean, what kind of ridiculous fantasy
It's a bad
sequence is
drama.
that?
It is. And it's straight out of the Murdoch trial, isn't it? Did you look in their eyes as you lied to them? Did you look in their eyes? Did you look in their eyes? Look me in the eyes. Like that.
This is why, I mean, I had a fellow on who is an expert in jailhouse informants, and he said basically that, he categorically said jailhouse informants should be barred from testifying. Period. Now, I was I wasn't completely sold on that. I was giving him some pushback, but he was a professor from Alabama and was very certain that this should never be allowed. This is such a supporting point for that, because if you're a stupid jail prisoner and you want to get out of jail free card, what would you want to tell the prosecutor? This exact stupid ass story that you've made up, that it makes no sense, that nobody in hell with any bit of common sense should ever believe. But yet it's a confession. It's a statement against interest. We got to let that in front of the jury. He confessed to this guy, It's absurd. Yeah. There's no way that happens. I mean, I don't know.
At this point in time,
do you guys want to hear the warning for what juries are supposed to get in Canada if they're for a jailhouse confession stuff?
Yeah. What is it? I've never heard this.
It's called a Vetrovec warning, and it's for witnesses of unsavory character. And the classic example of that is this, the jailhouse informant who's going to be getting something. And so it's, person testified for the Crown. I'm now going to give you special instructions that apply to this witness. You've heard that, and then, fill in sort of the blanks. Testimony from this kind of Crown witness must be approached with the greatest care and caution, because experience tells us that you sort of note that these have an interest in the outcome of the case, a strong motivation to lie, the ability to conceal true motives, a desire to minimize their own involvement, etc. That has to be sort of tailored to the specifics of the moment. They say it is dangerous to base a conviction on unconfirmed evidence of this sort. You should consider whether the person's testimony is confirmed by other evidence in deciding whether the Crown has proved the person's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. You should look for independent evidence tending to show that the person's testimony implicating the accused is true. By independent, I mean a source unconnected to the witness. However, if you find the witness's testimony trustworthy, you may rely on it even if it is not confirmed by other evidence. Where allegations have been made of collusion between the witness and the potentially confirming witness, the jury should be reminded of this and told that they should look for confirmatory evidence that is independent of the witness and that relates to an important and relevant aspect of the witness's testimony. Generally, the instruction must allow the jury to identify the evidence they're entitled to consider as being confirmatory. So that means potentially examples. And where there's confirmatory evidence, they can add some potential examples of what might be considered. But it is a fairly strong caution to be this evidence might be bullshit, and you should maybe not rely on it. I think it helps. So,
well, and I always wonder about those kind of instructions, and it's better than not, right? But on the other hand, I don't know. I mean, if I was a prosecutor, if I was a prosecutor, I'd have a lot of, if you're trying to play fair, I don't think I would bring this guy up. Because I'm this is so absurd. I don't believe him. If I was a prosecutor, I would not believe this witness, and I would not put him in front of the jury, even though it sounds like it's helping my case. It also has to go. Yeah, I know. I get it. I'm just saying that it's so absurd. What is the control? Obviously, I would go with the Canadian rule, but I don't even know if that's strong enough. This guy should not even be allowed.
This guy's evidence is particularly shit. There are circumstances where there are sort of the jailhouse confession that have some merit. I can think of an example here where because of a guy basically went and said, I want to make a deal. I've got new information. I've received a jailhouse confession, and they went, okay, sure. And he's like, no, I can tell you where the murder weapon is. And there was no way that guy could have himself been the murderer because he was in custody that whole time. So, it's not that he figured it out because he was secretly the murderer, but he was able to tell them, hey, this is where you find the murder weapon. And so That I think is fairly strong, because it's like, how does this guy know where the murder weapon was if, but for hearing it from this dude? But most often I don't put a lot of into Jailhouse Confessions. So
yeah, and Munch, and you heard it, kilos. Not that he just happened to have a bag in the glove box. Kilos.
Kilos
And
of
this was
cocaine.
his sixth conviction, headed his way, facing life, well, years enough to spend the rest of his life in prison. Does he have any incentive to lie, maybe? What, for instance, why was he even put in Zach's cell? Well, it's not his first snitch. To begin with. And then Zach had at this point in time been absolutely silent for 2 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
all
he's
of
a
a
career
sudden he
snitch,
starts
isn't he?
talking to Munch.
Munch is well known.
I mean,
for
he
this
seems
stuff,
like a
isn't he?
trustworthy guy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. His name is Munch.
Mm.
I'm gonna have
With
to go,
600
guys.
pounds of weed in the back of your car, I mean, I'd probably have the munchies too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the defense even had another person who the prosecution allegedly had approached about snitching on Zach. But he said, oh, hell no. And he went in testifying about how Munch actively said in the cell block how easy it is to get out if you just make up stories, how you go about finding out about the discovery and stuff like that. But yeah, this was a part of the conviction, the confession.
And the way Gravely acted while this guy was on the stand, to me, it looked like he had been really coached very well to say certain words and certain phrases.
That's why he wanted to make sure the jury could hear him every single word. Every single word. I'm going to have to go, guys. Thank you for an awesome chat. I'm so pleased to be talking about Zachariah Anderson's case. Again, we need to talk about it more. Continue. Never let this end until the day we see him walking out of those prison gates and joining us here. That will be lovely. One day he will.
Yeah, and I promised to have a
guys.
stream with the. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I promised Miss Burkhardt that I would have a stream with her about the Zachariah Anderson case because she also heard a lot about it, and she wants
said
to
when
know
the
more
appeal
about
comes
it.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, when the appeal, because they hired. Oh, what's her name?
Natalie Wisco.
Natalie Wisco as their appeals attorney.
Yeah, which
nice.
is an excellent choice. You know Natalie, right?
Mhm.
Nice
Yep.
you. Yeah,
And
very good.
I'm happy they did, and I'm a bit saddened because now I can't have her on because I had her on talking about the Zachariah Anderson case, and then they hired her. So now she can't talk about it.
Yeah, but when's she going to file her initial brief? Do you know?
They got the transcript because they had to pay close to $15,000 for the transcript alone from this trial. 21
that
days.
doesn't surprise me. Transcripts are insanely expensive.
Yeah, and his fundraiser is just over 40 grand, so they have paid all the initial fees and everything, or all the initial things. So she's actively on it. So, but I don't know when she will actually file it. I do believe
when you do get a copy of it, let me know and I'll go over it with you because that's kind of up my ballpark, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because this case has so much in it, from the equivalent to the Franks hearing about the third-party culprit. All again, oh, you don't have a nexus. Well, you have another person who the victim himself said, I'm going to meet up with this guy, who he have quarreled about money, who was found the day after with a rolled up carpet in the back of his truck which he didn't want to give to a friend of his, and then went over the state line instead of a local landfill, over the state line to get rid of. And
I mean, those carpets can have quite a smell. You really want to get them.
Yeah, but this guy wanted it for his patio for his dogs, so he didn't really care about. And all of that was in this equivalent to Frank's hearing. And this pisses me. This case still over a year later. He was sentenced in May of last year, I think. But we had some quarrel in regarding the Delphi case. The badass American says, not true, he was identified by the witnesses. No, he wasn't. Richard Allen was never identified by anyone. The witnesses described a bridge guy. They never identified Richard Allen as the bridge guy. Not in testimony, not in interviews. Never did they identify Richard Allen as the bridge guy. So this is false. And I've heard so much about the Delphi case, and it is copy-pasting the same tropes. He confessed. He was identified. He said he had the same clothes. No, he didn't. It is vehemently false. He said he had similar clothing. He had a jacket, a sweater, and blue jeans. Folks, in the Midwest, in Indiana, everybody has a jacket, sweater, and blue jeans. Everybody. That's the standard clothing for a middle-aged man.
It's kind of what we call the Hoosier uniform.
Yeah. And the 4 sketches, none of them resemble him. And if the prosecution actually believed that Richard Allen was bridge guy, they would have asked every witness, do you see that person in court today? None of them was asked that question because the prosecution was scared of the answer. Also, they described him as tall, bridge guy. One of them even described him as beautiful. Richard Allen is 5'5". That's not tall. Yeah. So just bringing it up there. And I know people really want Richard Allen to be guilty, but that trial is such a scam. And it's even worse because it wasn't televised. We actually, until we get the audio, we don't know exactly what was said in trial. But also there, the Frank's hearing, they said, there's no nexus. Oh, real? You have 2 people confessing to the crime who isn't Richard Allen. And according to Indiana law and statute, a confession is a nexus enough for the Frank's motion to be approved. And Judge Gold said, nah. Banter Loins, he's 100% guilty and the UK doesn't televise trial. None of this is in UK. Why does my chat all of a sudden is infected with stupid? Oh, Banter Loins.
No comment.
you just changed your. Oh, it's a troll.
The F around and find out switch has been flipped.
Yeah.
And I should probably go, and I'm trying to get all my stuff from the charity auction packed up. I can't ship anything yet because it's the Canada Post is on strike, but I'm trying to get it packed up so it's not sitting around because I'm worried stuff's going to get lost or something. So
Yeah,
I gotta.
I tried to win the next batch, but of hot sauces, but I lost out $25. Because I sent you a silent bid of 400, but somebody bid over it. Darn it!
I will have to. Oh yeah, I got to get started on my experiments there. I got to make sure all of that is working and try to figure that out too, because I've got some people were asking if I could make an onion-free hot sauce, which is a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to try to do that. But
Cortez tells you to just use UPS.
yeah. I'm pretty sure that they're. I'm pretty sure they're trolling.
Yeah, I don't think UPS wants you as a customer anymore for some odd reason.
Well, it's funny because somebody was shipping me something and they're shipping it UPS, and I was like, "Why?" And then they sent back a clarification saying, "No, it got shipped to Canada, so this is within Canada UPS, so they're not going to charge you." And I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll allow it."
Oh, that was amazing video when you actually.
Oh well,
won.
I mean, they caved, and I was kind of sad because I really wish I could have taken them to court on that one. Because if I could have, then I could have gotten an injunction, and the injunction would have been, "Hey, you guys have to stop doing this throughout Alberta." And the amount of damage that would do to their finances in Alberta is not small. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of UPS and the fuckery they do to Canadians. So, yeah, but yeah, great show, and I will have to catch up again soon.
Yeah, I will invite you next time, and if you have use for me, I will gladly be on your show.
Awesome. We'll have to get that set up, but in the meantime, have a great night, and see you guys next time.
See you. Ian. Bye. All right, Kaiser.
Hi. I'm still here.
Yeah, you're still here. This was supposed to be an easy, maybe not even legal stream, but
look, you invite a bunch of lawyers on here, it's gonna be a legal stream. Come on.
Yeah, and sadly, the goal wasn't reached. So, but I will still have it open. If I get $50 in super chats or gifted memberships, I will still do the reading of Jack Gotti lyrics before I end this stream. And the stream will end probably within half an hour or something like that, because it is 5:48 a.m. where I am.
It's about 10 till midnight here, good buddy. And yeah, I'm running on about 3 hours of sleep from yesterday because the youngin decided to have himself a little episode last night that required a trip to the ER until about 2:30 in the morning. And then I had to be up at 7 o'clock this morning to go run down, south to, my folks' neck of the woods and, go run a D&D session all day.
Oh, well, you have to say hi to the folks. I had an amazing time when I went there. Now, for you who don't know you, Kaiser, educate them.
Oh, on just what I do or what?
Yeah, what's your channel and everything?
Okay, well, I'm Kaiser Pineapple, and as the name suggests, you can find me searching that name right out there. And so I do a lot of mainly movie entertainment news and a lot of the just what's going on in the culture sphere, pop culture, and yeah, just covering a lot of that stuff. I have been a little indisposed. I had a nasty upper respiratory infection a couple weeks ago. I'm finally over that, but yeah, then this stuff is kind of gone a little crazy. So I'm getting back on my feet and everything, getting more content out there. I've got some cool stuff planned in the future, and been working on I just got bored one day and just said, yeah, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and try it. And actually, I'm in the process of writing my actual first novel. So, I'm actually about a third of the way through.
Mm?
So, yay. So if that ever actually sees the light of day, which, I'll definitely let you know if that does. And yeah, I'm say you can read an interestingly weird horror story about a bunch of researchers trapped in a in a research station with a very weird artifact that makes it crazy.
Yeah, we have a lot of interesting discussions because for folks who see, okay, I have the Viking thing and everything, and I've been looking more into because most people say, oh, Vikings, they were between the battle of that one and the battle of that one, and then it disappeared. No, it started about 1500 years earlier. So the Aesir faith, it predates Christianity. We actually have evidence for it. And it didn't actually stop. We still celebrate the Yule and Midsummer. So we still have those old pagan things going on for 2,500 years at least.
What's the old saying go? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. We claim to become Christianized, but they couldn't get rid of our Yule, our Yule celebration, or our Midsummer celebration. They took our what became Easter, which is the name of the Aesir goddess of spring is Easter. Just saying. So we have a lot of interest.
Yeah, it was a PR thing, It's easier to convert if you just use a whole lot of let's just let them keep their days and their traditions, but we'll just bring in some new stuff and it'll be great.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much. The more I look into it, the beyond the sagas and everything. When I say the Aesir faith is it is at least 2,500 years. They found a rune stone in Denmark where the runes predates the what's the language again? The Old Futhark, which is one of the older ones. It is a predate to Old Futhark runes. And since it's on stone, it's hard to, okay, how old is this? So they have to go by the ground it's buried in. And it might be 4,000 years ago. So it might even predate the Christianity by 2,000 years.
Yeah, fascinating bit about that is that, they also, there's some, I can't remember where it is, but it's like somebody, I heard some argument one time that, there was that people of various, basically of, let's just say Caucasians never made landfall in the New World, aka North America, before like the 1600s. And I'm like, you do realize there's literally 2 rune stones 100 miles inside of Wisconsin that were erected as far back as the 1100s?
Yep.
Just saying.
Just saying.
I say, we've been here a while.
Yeah. And I know we have definite evidence of Newfoundland. They might have gone as far south as south of present-day New York. Then you have the Wisconsin things. Yeah, Vikings were there earlier. And by the way, Christopher Columbus never set foot on mainland America. He went to the Caribbeans, and he thought he was in India. Yeah. Aestre is a spring goddess. Yeah. So yeah. So and then we go back to the old Aesir the beginning of Earth and the ending of Earth, with the ice and fire, with the supposed meteor strike that they found on Greenland at the end of the last ice age. And I mean, every folklore has an inkling of truth. So these ice and fire things, and what most people don't know about the Aesir faith is that already happened. For instance, for Forsyth or Forsete, he was one of few Aesir gods who survived this Aesir ending of world. And he then became the he was the god of justice in peacetime. And one of the things that he did, and I've said this before, when he sat upon the throne, hearing the squabble between people, he made judgment who is correct and who is not. And what he did was he took his golden axe, passed judgment with the blunt end. If you didn't listen to it, you got the sharp end. But the blunt end to this day is banging with the gavel.
Yep.
So this banging of the gavel, it's so much in the world is based on old Aesir, and none of it are the Delphi Aesir. Those are Odinists. Those are white supremacy morons, but they are dangerous morons. And when it comes to the Delphi case, sadly, I've seen the crime scene photos. Sticks don't land that way on that by accident, not in the shape of old Futhark and young Futhark runes.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Assholes react. Hey Nick, bringing a new show to YouTube from Rumble, and would love to have you on air Sunday 9 EST. That's 3 a.m. my time on a Monday morning. I wish I could, but that I can't on those times. I will be asleep. I wish I could, but I can't. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. Which gives us $45 more to me reading a Jack Goddy lyric. Specifically, Count Up, that doesn't have the N-word in it. But it has other words in it that will get my which will get my stream demonetized.
Ooh, we need to do a dramatic reading. I could do voices. I could pull out the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah.
And I can do the Swedish Chef.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
But do you have something new for us that we haven't heard before?
Not really, no. I'm kind of boring it that way.
Okay, you have the live action how to train a dragon.
Oh Lord.
Now,
boy, that's a controversy and a half.
Yeah, folks, I know some actors in that and the producer and so on, they are gunning for the controversy. Here's the thing, folks. This here is actual Viking descendant. My ancestors are actual Vikings. We don't give a fuck how you do How to Train Your Dragon, because it's make-believe. It's make-believe. And they portray Iris, Ingrid, or whatever they call her, as Astrid, as a black woman with braids. don't give a fuck. For instance, Vikings traveled all across the world, including the Mediterranean, including North Africa. Is there an impossibility that somebody say, hey, that chick's beautiful, let's bring her home? No, that's not an impossibility. Yeah, Joe Rogan believes in dragons. Yeah, we know.
I think that's more of a joke than anything. Like,
Yeah.
if you actually go back and like listen to like the Forrest Galante, like actual like interview that he was talking, where that would kind of came up, they were literally sitting there talking about like, it is entirely possible that there are large lizards of some kind that may have or may not have yet been discovered. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of made a joke about it and made his like Twitter like bio thing said dragon believer just because out of a joke. And now they're freaking Joy Behar off The View is like running with it. Like, oh my God, he believes in dragons. I'm like, okay, sure. All right. Like how many retractions are you wanting to go ahead and do on The View this week? Because you've already had to do one this week with getting with watching Sonny Hostin's soul die on live TV.
Yeah. Now, in old Aesir faith, we don't have dragons. We have a serpent.
That guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what's the English word? I don't remember, but Jörmungandr. He's the middle child of Loki and the giantess. And Valhalla awaits. We got raided. We got raided. Oh, they're done with their Lego stream.
The goat
they're
man's
done with
coming.
their Lego stream. Hey, and he has the link because now we're talking about Viking stuff.
Yay!
Now Loki is also the father of the wolf. He's father of the serpent, and because why not?
Right.
Yeah. So we don't have dragons. We have a serpent, just one. Beowulf. No, he's not the father of Beowulf. Gremison. Thank you, John C. Yeah.
Not to mention with the whole serpent thing, serpents were kind of like always portrayed as basically portents of ill omen, cataclysm, destruction. And if you look back at the historical record, there's a number of instances where across a lot of ancient cultures, the symbol of the serpent was made to actually represent an asteroid impact or a meteorite impact that caused a lot of death and destruction. Strangely, all these cultures seem to have had this happen around the same time a long time ago. It's like, and somehow these effigies are still alive in modern folklore. I'm just saying.
Yeah, dragons are mentioned in many civilizations. Yeah, in different shapes and forms. We it's impossible to know, but are they dragons or are they serpents? What kind of dragons are there? What kind of lizards are there? Remember, the first dinosaur bone discovered, they thought was giant people. That wasn't correct. Yeah, the Midgard serpent. Yeah. Oh. Let's see here. Dun, dun, dun. Let's talk about the Midgard serpent. There. Jörmungandr. The Midgard serpent. So, yeah. And the origins and everything. Is it real or not? I have no idea. I have. Steve is still he is still streaming this. He must be beside himself with joy.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, I hate to do it, but I am dying on the vine here. So I need to go ahead and pack it in for the night, buddy.
Oh, do we have a race swap or gender swap?
It's I sent you the article. It's about the race swap, Astrid character for How to Train Your Dragon. It's kind of, yes, it's interesting. It's actually some folks that I trust and I get some of my good info from. So it's worth reading.
yeah, but I mean, me as one of the actual descendants, I don't care. But there apparently there are people who cares that say, oh, you can't do that. Vikings were right. We didn't live on isolated islands with dragons either. Yeah. Okay. 3 hours and 6 minutes. It's 6 a.m. here.
Yep.
I think I need to join you in getting a few hours of sleep before it's Sunday here, and I have to do some work.
Yeah, I got to be up in about 7 hours. I got to get up early. I got a turkey breast to smoke, and I've got a whole bunch of turkey necks and chicken feet and other bits of stuff to smoke off, so that way I can go ahead and make chicken and turkey stock for gravy, so I can have that for Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. Because the turkey breast I'm cooking up, I'm smoking today. I'm going to vacuum seal it after it's done and throw some butter and some other stuff in there with it, and that way on Thanksgiving morning on Thursday I can just pull it out of the freezer, throw it in the sous vide, and then bada bing bada boom, turkey's done.
I don't mind that at all. I'm having the missus over later today my time, and we're having beef and wrinkle cuts and some pepper sauce and some good wine and beer. Yeah, it's going to be good.
That sounds like a fantastic time.
Yeah, it does. Now, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but Monday, where I will be back for closing arguments in the YSL trial. The prosecution have 5 hours and the defense have 4 hours. So Monday and Tuesday will be closing arguments. And then all of a sudden it is Thanksgiving. So everybody.
Turkey and nonstop Mystery Science Theater 3000 all day long.
Yeah, we didn't reach the goal of me reading Jack Gotti lyrics, but we came halfway. Maybe next time. We will see on Friday. If the trial is still going, if they haven't reached the verdict, we will know. But everybody, thank you. Thank you to Kaiser, to Ian, to Steve, to everybody else who joined, and thank you to you guys who tuned in. Sorry. And thank you for allowing me to do this. And I will see you Monday. Okay. And let's see what I can send you guys off with.
Hey, you mind if I give one shameless plug real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I say, if you want to hear more of my dulcet tones, my voice, and listen to the sexy sounds coming from me, join me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern over on Shizzy Wiznut's channel for our Sunday Spice episode, where we get to read all kinds of very sultry and amazing stories and do it in a bunch of really wacky voices. It's a good time.
All right. Everybody, see you Monday. Have a great time. Peace. And I'm out. See ya. Bye-bye.
Crooked Fanny playing dirty tricks
In the courtroom, she always picks, bending the rules. She'd know it, but I won't let her get under my skin. Down in Georgia, where the blues run deep, crooked justice, a secret they keep. But I see through her lies, I see the truth. Gonna make her pay for what she do. Fanny's got a reputation to uphold, but her tactics are shady.